Welcome to another episode of Local Football Flavor, the show where we talk to local fans to get their unique perspective about what's going on with their team. Because in the national media, you just flat out don't have enough time to be accurate about everything, and that's how misinformation and false narratives really can spin around, which is not good when we're trying to do fantasy wires and bets. It's much better to have true information from local fans who know what's going on. Because outside of our market, how else are we supposed to know? So today we're going to be talking about the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants have not exactly had a pretty decade or longer. If you take away Eli Manning, what have they really done aside from lose? A lot. So in today's episode, that means we're going to learn from them and try to see what's going on. We're going to discuss things like Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Is Daniel Jones a guy who can lead them to victory, even though history shows that might not be the case? Is it because Saquon Barkley was the second pick overall and he's always hurt? All of these questions and more we're going to dive into today, and we're going to be welcoming a guest. His name's LaMonica. He's a man who has seen the world. He has scaled the Great Wall of China. He has stepped into North Korea. He has walked among the heroes in Afghanistan, in Iraq, all while keeping an ear to what's going on with his local team, those New York Football Giants. He has stayed on this roller coaster of being a Giants fan for his entire life of over 5 decades. So without further ado, local football flavor, New York Giants. Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team. Yeah, hi, and welcome. So, Rich, as I mentioned here, I want to start off with a question about a misconception that I have about military life in general, because obviously that's a big part of your life. I just always had this conception that life was always 24/7 planned when you were in the military, and having free time just basically didn't exist. But obviously part of that has to be wrong because you were able to follow the Giants. So I want to give you the floor here to kind of correct my mistake, and let's talk some Giants.
Definitely. Joe, Bob, thanks for having me on here for this show and talk about these New York Football Giants. In the military, you have a bunch of testosterone and adrenaline-ridden guys and girls that are, fighting for their country. But in every plan, every year, there's plan to watch football. No matter where I was in the world, you always had Super Bowl off. I was in Korea. I watched the Super Bowl. Your team played Super Bowl, actually, in I think 2008 or 9, what year it was, at 9 o'clock in the morning in Korea, drinking in a bar. So I got to watch that game. And in Iraq, I think it was a 5-hour difference from Iraq to back home. So we were able to watch the Super Bowl there about midnight or whatever. And we're in the middle of the night and watch the game. There was always time planned in for a big sporting event, and not just football, every major sporting event. Anything you can bet on, soldiers would bet on and watch it. And so it always fit in, and that bit led to more rivalries among soldiers. There's a lot of Pittsburgh fans in the military, a very large number of Pittsburgh fans in the military. I was very surprised by that, but I guess a lot of people from the whole area up there joined the military, which is awesome. That's a patriotic thing to do, but I didn't realize how big that influence was into the military until I got in.
Well, that's beautiful. So, like I said, I just flat out didn't know. I appreciate you giving us some insight for something that most of our viewers probably don't know about. So, with that being said, we are here to talk about the Giants, which is a much sadder topic, at least in recent memory. So, I guess my first question, and as for those who just watched our Carolina episode can see, why did you sit with Judge as long as they did? I mean, the guy just didn't look like he belonged. His first ever time on a sideline, I thought he came out of like an 80s porn movie. Like the dude just didn't look like he belonged in charge of people. So why? Why Judge? Why that long?
I think you can go a step higher than Judge into our former GM. Our former GM, he was a bag of rocks, I'll call him, for kindness. And he did everything he could to destroy Carolina, then came to New York and basically destroyed New York and put us into the situation we are now. And once he had Judge in there, he didn't want to say he was the failure and take him out of there. So he had to keep pushing that porn star, like you said, in there and make him be the coach. But, I mean, he came from being a special teams, maybe coordinator with the Patriots, oh, now you're a head coach from being a special teams guy. I can see if he had any other coordinator experience in other teams, but he didn't. You can't go from being a special teams guy to being in charge of the whole soup sandwich, which he was handed, and he couldn't handle it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, for further evidence, that's what they did with the Raiders last year. The guy won one game, then lost out.
Right.
It's important. I mean, you need the 3 points when it comes time to kick a field goal, but it's not relevant. So, is that the same GM that drafted Jones and Barkley?
Yes, he is. Same feller.
So, all right. So let's start there, because it seems that you can't have a conversation around the Giants without talking about Jones and Barkley. So let's start with Jones being the quarterback. Is there a reason to have hope in this guy moving forward, or is his only real hope that he's getting you the first round draft pick so you can have the next Alabama quarterback?
I think that's a pretty good hope right there. But I think when the draft was held, it was held right down the road here in Nashville when Jones got picked. And to say I was shocked would be an understatement. I fell out of my chair when they said his name, because I did not see that coming at all. Had no idea why we would take him. But then I was also, had some positivity. So maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe it's something I didn't see. And then he was handed three different head coaches now, and he's just destroyed. It doesn't matter how good he was coming out of college. He's not going to have anything left. He's been beat down so bad with all these coaches and bad offensive lines. He's never going to come back from that. This year, of course, they didn't take his option, so I'm pretty sure he's done with us after this year. Tyrod's starting to take some first-team snaps right now, which is indicative of what they believe Jones can do at this time. Saquon, he hasn't made a full season yet. He was also a lot of people questioned him being picked as our number 2 overall pick. Well, why would you pick him there? He hasn't proven himself because he went to Penn State. He was a good running back, but will he make it at a full season? That's what I want to see. At any point, any one of these players that get drafted high can get hurt. I understand that it's football. It's a combat sport. But you got to take care of yourself and take care of that asset. If you're not taking care of that asset, he's also going to be a liability. I think right now he's estimated to do well this year, but that's if he makes that a preseason.
Yeah, and Rich, I had a follow-up question with that. So from what I understand about the Giants, it seems that the depth has always been a really big problem in the last 10 years. There doesn't really seem like, you have like a talent like Saquon Barkley or, a potential like Daniel Jones was when he first started. But those guys get hurt, they start not playing well, and then you look to guys like Wayne Gallman. You look to guys that, you trade for Kenny Golladay, who was average at best for Detroit. You're hopeful for Kadarius Toney, but their defense, their offensive line, everything seems like a mess. It doesn't seem like that at any one point in time there's any depth at any position. Now, do you feel that things with Daniel Jones or with Saquon Barkley would have been a little bit different had the depth been better? And what do you see as something that could potentially help and alleviate and help the Giants in the long term to get out of this, slog that they're in?
I think in order to get out of this slog, they need to, like you said, build depth. But like Daniel Jones, when he came in, he had some better opportunities to throw to. But of course, Odell Beckham hurt, and he hasn't finished a complete year his whole career. So, and he's highlighted by one catch against the Cowboys, and that's how he's sold his whole career now. And right now he doesn't have a team. So that was one player he had, and he failed with him. And then he had no line whatsoever. To your point of no depth, if you're only paying all the money for the guys, the first string guys, but not enough money to back them up, you're not saving anything at that point. All you're doing is having a high-priced line that you can't afford in 2 years anyway, and then you have backups that aren't getting reps. The same thing on the defensive side. When Leonard Williams went down last year, it kind of made a big hole for us. Dexter Lawrence gets hurt for a game or two. We're hurt there. Aziz got hurt last year as he was starting to move up, and then we had no one behind him. Blake Martinez, another one that can't make it through a year. Great linebacker, but he just can't make it through a year because it's a combat sport and he goes all out. He does sacrifice his body, but there's no one behind him that can play. We have some hope with Thibodeau coming in now, but he also hasn't showed that he can play in a game yet. He might be hurt right now. They're just hiding it.
So with that question, when you don't have depth, it normally comes down to one of two reasons. Either A, you're not giving the coaches good ore for them to mold and the finished product, or your coaches just can't do it. So you started in the beginning by defending Judge by saying that the old GM was bad. Is that along the same lines that he just couldn't draft at all and it didn't matter who they give him? Or was it because he was a special teams coach and just didn't know how to make players?
I think he didn't know how to mold players from the ground up. And I think now he's put into a role where he's the pseudo offensive coordinator or something in New England. And you'll see it fail there as well because they couldn't even really give him a real name because both coaches that they're doing the pseudo offensive coordinator both failed at the next level as head coaches. And as a Giants coach, he didn't know how to mold his coaches to do his to go with his game planner per se, and manage the team the way it should have been managed. So now with the clean house, and I mean, his trainers will still be the same people. They've been there for pretty much my whole life. Some of those trainers have been up in that building or the new building now, but the culture in the Giants needs to go back to how it was when LT and Harry Carson were there, where you punch people in the mouth and you get back up and you get back in the game, and the guy behind you can also punch the guy in the mouth and get in the game. That's how you have to have the culture, and the coaches have to breed that into you, and that breeds the culture throughout the whole system.
And it seems that when we talk about the Super Bowl runs, that was what Coughlin was all about. And it seemed that followed Tom Coughlin no matter where he was. Like when you guys won those Super Bowls, yeah, Eli gets the credit because they got the ball on the side of the head and all of that stuff. But it was that D line that beat Brady.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that D line was amazing. And that's, I guess, the real question is, A, why did you get rid of Coughlin? Like, come on. He was clearly the glue. He made Jacksonville good. Like, yes. Let's think about that second for a second. He made Jacksonville good. And I don't think there's a bigger train wreck in the history of football than Jacksonville since they started. I know they had their first Hall of Famer a couple weeks ago, but period. Jacksonville's a train wreck.
So they also ruined him, though. Tony Baselli would have been better at any other team.
That's true. That's true. But at least Coughlin there made something out of it, you know? So my question is now as we look into this season, try to look at some reason with some optimism. The Bills weren't exactly known for handing the ball off and running people over. You know, Allen did that because Josh Allen's just a freak. Yes. But as a unit, that didn't really sit in our mentality. It seemed like Allen, as a guy, would just be like, all right, I'm going to win. If you're in my way, that's your problem. But I never thought of the Bills, rather, as having just a Jerome Bettis, here's the ball, game over, Derrick Henry style type of football. And is that ultimately what you're hoping the Giants get to when you're talking about getting that kind of culture? Or is it just let's adapt to the modern NFL and see what this guy from Buffalo can give us?
I think with the modern NFL, as we see it now with the spread or the West Coast offense, whatever you want to call it now, it needs to have some kind of hybrid in there with the Derrick Henrys. And Saquon has the ability to stiff arm someone to death if he puts his mind to it, if he can make it past the second level. Or even the first level, actually. If he can make it past that first level into a hole, he can stiff arm somebody and hurt them. But we need to make that line. Right now we have 3 linemen hurt already. 3 linemen hurt already. Center and both guards are hurt right now. Ooh. So how do we get Saquon through that first level and be able to have smash mouth football and then complement that with a passing game to Kadarius Toney or Wendell? But if that run game doesn't start, Jones is going to be running for his life, and he'll probably get hurt by the 4th game, and Tyrod will be starting anyway.
Yeah,
that's a bleak picture, man.
I mean, it's what it seems like. I mean, you said that those trainers have been there for what seems like forever. Strength and conditioning is a really big deal in football. In your opinion, do you feel like the players that they're drafting and the players that they're getting are just the type of guys that aren't doing well with that system, or is it the system that's failing them to a degree? Because, you know, like Joe said, and like we know, the Giants had success. They won Super Bowls with Eli Manning. And so those same people, trainer-wise, were there. So do you feel like the system needs to be overhauled and something new needs to happen? Or do you think it is that new blood, new players need to come in and fit into the system?
I think it's a combination thereof. I think, like, if you look at Xavier McKinney, he came from Alabama. Their training system there is world-class. A lot of their players can leave Alabama and go right to starting in the NFL, no matter what day it is they come out of the school. He got to the Giants. and he had now adjust to probably a training system that was less than it was at Alabama. So a lot of like him, even Barkley, when he got hurt, he had to go pay a separate trainer to get him back this year after tearing the ACL last year, so he would be at this top notch. He didn't just stay with the Giants program; he checked in with them, but used his own personal trainer to do it. And if you see him doing that, that shows you that he didn't trust the system that was in place, or he didn't think they could get him back to that health. So he does go by what they say to do with the nutrition and such, but he also does what his trainer tells him to do. That way, he is at the top of his game. Same thing with Xavier McKinney. He's at the top of his game by training with an outside trainer. The trainers in-house, yeah, they know a system that they've been doing, but they need to get that injection of new blood in there too, to show new ways of doing things, to show there are other ways to skin that cat than they're doing right now.
Yeah, because I mean, it shows too, because you look at a guy like Derrick Henry goes down with an injury that's pretty significant and is back,
right?
Like, and healthy and making cuts and doing all of his stuff. And, we just sit here and wonder why, as a fantasy football player, I wonder why every year I'm like, okay, Saquon Barkley, there's got to be this year.
Yeah.
And then it never is.
Right.
And because, I've watched Penn State games when he was playing, we live in the, Northeast, but like, it's just a struggle to watch talent or pseudo talented players go down week in and week out. And it just seems that, something's got to give. If it's not the coach and GM, like our guest for our Panthers, it's like something's up, and it confuses me.
It's like if you watch NCIS, Leroy Jethro Gibbs says, "Don't waste good." It seems like that's what we do with our players in the New York Giants right now. We waste good talent. We have the talent, and then we just waste it. Oh, you get hurt? Get out of here. We'll just put the third string in here because we'll just ride him out the rest of the year. He's cheaper. And then hopefully maybe he'll come back. And this year, Barkley's on that. He has to be on a tear this year to stay with the Giants, or they're probably going to try to push him out as well.
I never thought I'd say this, but you guys sound like the Bengals. Like, what is you guys are New York, the mecca of the money of this country, and you're afraid to pay people? I mean, that doesn't add up.
Gettleman paid everyone too much is the problem. And I think we're third or fourth and the highest cap problem right now at this time, I think. And to get out of it, it'll take a couple of years of showing, doing some voodoo math or whatever they do, or voodoo economics to make this thing work. And it'll take a little haul, but he can also grow the players he has right now. He has a good youth group in there right now, a good young core. If they can train them and get them to the right spots, they should be able to make this happen.
So who is the optimism looking at moving forward? You mentioned you don't necessarily think Jones or Saquon might be part of the future, but who is part of the future that is the core that, like, this is who the Giants can get behind?
I think if Toney stays healthy, he'll be a good receiver. Keeps his mouth shut a couple times, he'll be good. Wendell's actually a pretty good receiver if he can stay healthy as well. On the other side of the ball, we have all kinds of talent on the other side of the ball. It's just getting them to work in sync and together at the same time on a play. Like the days of Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor rushing the pass or going to stop and run. We don't have two guys that can stay on the field consistently ever. We haven't had them since the last Super Bowl. Well, when Strahan played, or the one before when Strahan played, we don't have that consistency anymore. We have guys that play maybe 3 downs and they have to take break for 4 downs because they're tired or they're winded or they stubbed their toe. And then you got to wait for that guy to come back in and they just scored a touchdown. It's a downhill slide from there. On the other offensive side, we got rid of Evan Engram. Everyone thinks that's the best thing in the world. We do have a good rookie tight end right now, and he's willing to block and he can catch. It's kind of strange. You get block and catch, and he's willing to do anything on the offensive side. I'd like to see him succeed. I think he's projected to be a top 30 fantasy player right now, so that'd be great, and if that comes to fruition.
And Rich, too, to follow up on that, you said about talking about the defense and that it has pieces, but they're not always healthy at the same time or playing 3 downs, getting winded, and that speaks to the conditioning that we were talking about earlier. But the question is, within that division, you have Dak Prescott, you have Jalen Hurts, and you have Carson Wentz, who they all have their fair share of flaws in their game. They also have their differences in their system to play, and so when we look at the games that the Giants have to play this year, and we look at the talent level at quarterback, within the division, they're facing pretty talented guys. But when we look at the schedule outside of the division, Carolina, like our guest said, is a dumpster fire. What's going on in Tennessee? What's going on, in Chicago? Green Bay still has Aaron Rodgers. Like, is the defense built to take on the new quarterback, the mobile quarterbacks, and is it built to take on, those deep passers to keep them in games if the offense isn't working?
So right now, I believe we have one steady cornerback in Adoree. He is probably our best corner, and of course, he has to stay healthy. But our linebackers, if they can stay healthy, Thibodeau and Aziz, if those two can stay healthy, yes, we can track down the mobile quarterback. The test will be with Tannehill and Derrick Henry on September 11th, right down here in Nashville. And I'd love to be able to get in that game, but I know it's sold out. It's been sold out since they announced it. So I'll probably go to a bar down there and watch it and be the guy with the Giant shirt on yelling against the Titans. But I know Derrick Henry's probably going to beat someone's bricks off in that game because this is his comeback game. He wants to come out and show that he's back. He's in full force. I've seen him at the NASCAR race down here about a month ago. He was at the Tootsie's infield lounge, and the dude is just huge. He didn't have his big braids in. He was back. He was in training sessions. His hair was cut. He was a yes, sir. We're going to play. We'll play well. The dude is huge. He's a beast, and I think he's going to come back hard. He might destroy us by himself in that game.
So when you look at the schedule, Rich, and you're already thinking, okay, it's a loss week 1.
Yeah.
Where do you see some wins at here?
Carolina's a win. Seattle's a win. Houston's a win. One of the Dallases will be a win because Stack will get hurt somewhere in there. He'll probably get hurt before the second one, so we'll win that one. We'll win one of the Washingtons. And the two Philadelphia ones, those are toss-ups because those are brawls. That's a bigger rivalry than the other two. A lot of people don't want to admit it because that splits Jersey in half, and people really want to see us beat that Philadelphia. And they want to see their fans want their team to destroy us, and it bleeds into the teams. Hurts a good quarterback. A lot of people they doubt him a lot and they sleep on him. The young man can play quarterback. It's just if he has a good day or bad day with blocking and decision making, it will make or break him.
Yeah, and looking at your division, this is kind of like an outside perspective, but it really seems since Andy Reid left Philly all those years ago that it basically was a division that no one wants. For the last, 3 or 4 years, it's been universally called the worst division in football. It's just not, and the NFC South starting to fight for that now, but it's not a lot of heavy hitters. And now, if you're telling me here that you're basically just going 3-3 in your division, you said you're going to pick off one when Dak's hurt, you beat Philly because you hate each other, and Washington will just drop one. So if we're sitting here, you weren't too optimistic to find a whole lot of wins here, but you rattled off your division as 3-3, which when most people would think about going 3-3 in their division, it normally ends up being going 500 overall or ballparkish. And your pessimism makes me feel like you're getting 5 wins and 3 of them are coming in-house.
That's about what we feel right now. Of course, that all can change game 1, and the Giants come in and they're a whole different world, whole different team when they play that first game down here at Nissan Stadium. When they take that field and they actually play ball like football players are supposed to, go out there, hit people, get that ball, and chase that ball all day and make them run and work their tails off to win the game instead of us having to work from behind for 3/4 of a game to try to win and wind up throwing a million interceptions or fumbling every other play. So if we can do that, if we can correct all the errors that we've had since probably 4 years ago now or 5 years ago, if we can correct all those errors, we will have more than 5 wins. But those are the ones I can guarantee right now. Just looking at the schedule, the raw data on the schedule, and that doesn't factor in the injuries on the other teams, the other high level teams that will play there.
Sure, yeah. So when we do this exercise, we just kind of generally assume everyone's healthy, as if the opening day roster is them. So for the suicide poll or the survivor poll, depending on what you call it, you get to use your team once for 1 week that you guarantee they will win, and conversely for one team that you guarantee they will lose. So looking at your schedule, what is that win you are absolutely most confident in what week? And then same with the defeat on the other side.
September 18th is a guaranteed win for us. Guaranteed loss will probably be Green Bay on the 9th.
Fair enough. That's easy in the schedule and quick.
Yeah.
So perfect. Well, I thank you for the interview so far. We're going to do fantasy stuff on the other side of the break here. So please stick with us to the other side of the break. This episode is sponsored by the podcast Father and Joe. Father and Joe aims to bring individuals into a better relationship with God. Each episode discusses an element of the human experience that we all can relate to, as well as questions about faith. What are indulgences? What's going on with purgatory? Why can I mentally grasp the concept of God, but I don't feel him in my heart? During each episode of Father and Joe, we are invited to enhance our relationships, and in doing so, we will improve ourselves and society. Download Father and Joe every Tuesday. So we thank you for watching this episode of Local Football Flavor. We know there's a lot of different things you can be doing with your time, so we appreciate you either listening or watching us in whatever way you're digesting us here today. So we here at the episode want to try to request helping us out in one of 3 different ways, because all 3 ways will help us. First is the analytics. If you can either click like or subscribe on whatever platform you're watching us on, it makes a tremendous difference, as those algorithms kind of control what our popularity will be, and you, our listeners, are the only one that can help us win those analytics games. So by clicking like and subscribe, it makes a tremendous deal for us, and leaving reviews and comments help tremendously as well. So that's what we ask you as a listener to do. If you're interested in the show, you'd like to be a guest on the program, please reach out to us. We love talking to people, and it's our conversation about your favorite team, letting people know what's really going on that the national media normally misses. So we would love to have those conversations with you. And the third way is the sponsors. As you've noticed, we've already had some sponsors reach out to us here. You can see one down here in the corner. You can easily be in the scroller along the bottom, having your own personal message, as well as all other fun things like controlling the jersey I'm going to wear, or that little teddy bear behind me can be one of your team logos things. You can make me wear a stupid cheese head if that's what you want to do. All of those things are available by reaching out to us at localfootballflavor@gmail.com. We thank you guys very much for being a part of the show. And now let's resume to today's episode. Yes. So, Bob, why don't you lead us here in the potential fantasy upsides of the New York Giants?
Yeah. So, honestly, when I take a look at the Giants as a team, the guys that I would want to target at values, I mean, like you said, I really like Saquon Barkley, and I really like his potential. You know, like we were saying the whole time, if everything is healthy, he has the potential to do a lot. I'm really excited to see what Kadarius Toney can do this year. You know, I'm staying away from Daniel Jones just for the reasons that you said. And Wan'Dale Robinson is definitely an interesting prospect. Could you speak to those players and give us your opinion? I don't know if you're a fantasy football player yourself, but you know, how are the Giants going to be playing up? Are the Giants going to be playing from behind? How is this going to affect those guys' outlook?
I think historically we've been playing from behind every game. I think if all the stars align this year, you know, like we talked about earlier, health and all that stuff, things will be different. If Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas can play every game at the tackle positions, then Jones won't have to worry about blindside hits or even getting frontside blitzed from the outside. That will give him some chances to throw to Kadarius Toney, who I think right now is projected to be the 45th overall receiver as far as points. Kadarius right now for fantasy football, and then the other receivers all fall in up from there down to 125, I think, from Wendell and Darius Slayton, who's also often injured. Sterling Sheppard often injured. We've seen some hope last week from Colin Johnson. He might be a guy that steps in and becomes a slot receiver and becomes our little guy that could across the middle, even though he's 6 foot something and he'll be a hard target, a very big target across the middle. He could get some points. I will fall back to our tight end, Daniel Bellinger. I think he's going to be the guy who gets the most points on the offense for fantasy, and followed right behind him by Saquon if Saquon stays healthy.
So you're calling the rookie tight end over Saquon Barkley?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, that's big, and it says a lot though about Saquon's health. It says a lot about playing from behind. If you're playing from behind, you're obviously not gonna not going to run it at all. Now, Rich, if I'm sitting there in the draft, am I just staying away from the Giants in general other than Bellinger, or, are you letting somebody else jump on that one? And as a fan, do you even want to root for them on your fantasy football team?
If I was drafting this year, I probably wouldn't pick any Giants in my first many rounds. If they were left over at the end, I might grab them just for a mercy kill, I guess. Have them on the bench and for trade fodder later. But I don't think even as a diehard Giants fan, I would just go and pick my own team this year just for safety and wanting to win a fantasy league.
So one theme that you have said a lot throughout here is the health of the Giants. And to the point where it was more so than the Niners' health. And to me, they're always hurt. So the one thing that I know, because I did ride the Giants wide receiver game last year, and it's like, why? why are they always hurt? So with that being said, there's nothing obviously we can do about the injuries moving forward. But Sterling Sheppard is the name that's been around in the fantasy circles for a while, even though he hasn't really produced. When you look at the ideal way, if you were setting up this offense, who's getting the actual targets if everyone were healthy in a perfect bubble?
I say Kadarius Toney he'd be your first choice, and then followed closely behind it would be Wendell Robinson. But depending on time for Jones, it's going to be either Bellinger or Barkley on dump downs.
So really, Sheppard should be avoided, is what you're trying to tell me.
He won't make it 2 weeks. He hasn't made it 2 or 3 weeks in any season for the last, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. Actually, I'm surprised he's still with us.
So
it's true.
Is he a potential cap casualty at the last string down of cuts, or is he just going to be grandfathered in because he's just been a Giant forever?
It would not surprise me if he's let go. Slayton as well. Slayton has potential, but also often injured, and it just becomes a burden or a liability for the offense to have 2 guys that are always hurt. Then you have to keep filling them in with practice squad guys.
So ultimately, it's the real goal. I mean, not to get out of the fantasy bubble here for a minute, but is the real goal just to accumulate picks and hope for next year's draft?
I don't think they can afford multiple picks with the cap space they have unless they get rid of a lot of weight. If they get rid of a lot of weight, I mean, our 2017 pick is now our 3rd-string quarterback again. So he was the Giants, I forget what round he was drafted in, Davis Webb. He lasted a year or 2, and he was shipped off, and he's back again as our 3rd string. So he's going to wind up being, if Jones gets hurt, he's our 2nd-string quarterback again. So those picks really, do they matter in the beginning? Maybe, maybe not the way that we used to pick. But Schoen showed that he actually does some homework and let Daboll and him do some stuff and make some informed decisions, like picking Evan Neal, offensive lineman, big kid there. And I think he's going to do great things on the right side. If Thomas can stay healthy on the left side, we won't have to worry about those things. But draft picks, I don't think we can afford. We need to build from within right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and from everything that we've been saying, it seems that going forward, and one of the reasons why to stay away from the Giants in fantasy is that this offense is not a productive offense. So, and you're saying, you think it's going to be playing behind a lot. When you look through this season and going into next season, is there anybody out there in the college ranks today that if we were to project going forward, that could, I wouldn't say be the one-stop shop for the Giants at this moment in time, but help them move to the level in which you see their potential as a team, and how you see their success in the future going? Do you see a college guy at all that's could help them in any way?
I think the Alabama quarterback right now would be the spark they need if he stays healthy as well. That young man can play ball, and he can run, he can throw. I think he is the modern quarterback, and I think he'd be a great fit where we have right now. We also have Tyrod signed for 2 years, so he can mentor him. Tyrod's a great veteran quarterback. I don't know if he's still a starting material. He throws a lot of weird passes. He threw a lot of weird passes last week, but I think he'd be good to mentor the young quarterback when he comes in, and then let him take some hits, and then let the young kid come in and start instead of throwing him right to the fire.
So is it I guess the death knell of the Giants that they're unwilling to change over the last 10 years? I mean, going from Eli Manning basically into Daniel Jones, that seemed like a pretty, like it could be a fluid transition because their play style seems very similar. Is it the fact that the Giants are unwilling to change and try different things that's really been doing them in over the last 10 years, do you feel?
I think that did hold us back a lot. I mean, Daniel Jones, if you look at him and Eli stand next to each other, look like twin brothers. They wear the same khaki pants, same polo shirts. The only thing difference in their quarterback styles is Daniel Jones can run, except when he trips over the 10-yard line and stuff. But he can run. He can run pretty fast for what he is, and I mean, he had to run for his life a lot. But I think with this new regime at the coaching and GM, I think you're going to see some changes, especially in the style of offense we're going to play now. It's going to be different, and so this year it's going to be. You might want to call this a wash this year because it's the new year. But if it's 100% successful, all my picks from earlier will be wrong, and we'll win a lot of games. But if it's not a success, all my picks from before will pretty much be spot on.
So the one thing that he did in Buffalo, though, was he did a lot of 3 receiver sets, and that was just part of what he was known for. But as we went through this roster construction conversation, you're not confident you got 3 receivers, period, let alone the depth of being able to have them routinely sub in and out during the game. So have you seen anything during these initial parts of camp and even the preseason you've been looking at that has shown that, yeah, he had an idea in Buffalo, but he's also realistic that this guy, whichever be Tyrod or Jones, is not Josh Allen, and he himself showing flexibility? Or is he a mold that's just trying to push whatever clay you guys have into it's my way or the highway type deal?
I think he's going to be flexible. I think he's going to have like an amoeba kind of sense of playing, kind of like the old UNLV basketball defense, the amoeba defense. So he's going to play that for this offense and here, kind of play to the strengths of what we have. And instead of just doing the one way, I mean, right now I think we have 5 receivers that are out or injured right now already. So your starters right now would be Kenny Galladay, Wendell Robinson if he was healthy, and then probably Richie James. But Colin Johnson, even though he fumbled last week, was probably the best receiver last week, and he'll probably move up past Slayton and probably wind up either 1 or 2 on the side where Galladay is slotted right now.
Now, do you think, Rich, that because their conditioning is so terrible that the Giants kind of have to handcuff themselves into keeping like 6 or 7 wide receivers on the roster just because none of them stay healthy? But while we also agree that 30% of them aren't any good, like, is there a guy out there, like, would you want OBJ to come back? Would you want any of, like, I think Cole Beasley's out there too from Buffalo. Would you want them to bring in somebody? Would you want them to bring in somebody and get rid of, the chaff that's on the roster right now? Or like, how would you want to see it as a fan shake down realistically?
I'd love to have them bring someone in to sign them for the veterans minimum for a year and get rid of some of the fat we have right now, the dead weight that we have that's not really producing. They might produce a play and then they're done for the season. That doesn't help anybody. And
because over the last couple of years, Slayton, Sheppard, and even Kenny Galladay have been pretty useless, and they paid Galladay a lot of money.
Yes.
And he hasn't really done anything. So seeing a veteran presence on the team might get a young guy like Wendell or like Toney to play up to their potential.
And it causes that internal competition where if you see player X playing much better than I am, I have to get out there and do much better as well. I got to push myself so I have a slot on this team. And that'll make the competition in that quarter and that running back or wide receiver room, a much better competition, and they'll come out hungry instead of trying to look at their phones or eating hot dogs on the sideline and making sure they're pretty with their hats and stuff. Get out there and play football instead of doing all that stuff. Right now, of everyone that played last year, I think 4 of them are actually out for the remainder of the preseason at least, and maybe the first week. So you can get rid of most of them right now.
So it's not like a little camp thing, like we just don't want you to practice to make it worse. This is actually out.
Right.
And as you're saying that, the competition part of bringing in a big stud, that's exactly what Buffalo did. I remember being at Heinz Field the year before they got Diggs. and watching that team and being like, all they need is a wide receiver, and they're going to take this league over. Because that was when Allen was first coming out. But then and now, they had no second receiver. They just had a bunch of guys that Diggs made better, or Allen made better, how you were going to look at it. And it just took that one stud to show up. So, not to take Urban Meyer as a great football knowledge piece, but he did say that he wanted Toney more than anyone else in the draft. And why the hell you would say that about someone you didn't draft is beyond me. But he did say that. So is there a belief that this guy has what it could be? I know there's a lot of immaturity, but if he gets past that, is there the talent level to say that this guy could be a Diggs, a legitimate, we can build an offense around this receiver type guy?
I think so. If he can get out of his own way and not be hurt, he'd be great. But it's to be seen, I'd like to say, for that one.
Yeah, Joe, he showed flashes last year that as a fantasy player, you're like, oh, who is this guy? And then when you saw him make plays, he can ball. And this is the same thing that we with Odell Beckham, and it's the same thing where. And I don't know if this is a New York thing or people thinking that New York, this is the destination. Like, you're looking at the teams in your division, right, Rich? You got Dallas, huge destination. You're looking at Philadelphia, which is a really good destination too. And you're looking at Washington, that has a really good history for a team. These teams are destinations. Players have been either wanting to go there, they've been paid big money to go there. Why is it that recently the Giants have just been not able to keep their players' mindsets in a good place? Is it the losing mentality? Like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a winning season in a long time. Or is it just the hustle and bustle of New York? Like, and why is it that they can't attract somebody with a bigger talent than Kenny Golladay? Like, if you're paying money, you should be able to get somebody better than that.
And I think when we got Golladay, it was after all the other big names were taken by that point. So we had to go with the Golladay that was out there, because that was the way Gettleman would do things. He would try to fill other holes with extravagant amounts of money that really didn't work out for us in the end. But to your point of the destination of New York, in the old days, guys would love to come to New York and play and stay there their entire careers, or most of their careers, to play and say, I was a New York Football Giant. Even the team on the other side of the locker room, those Jet guys. There's guys that want to go play for the Jets because they're the Jets and they play in New York City. Outside New York City, you can see the skyline from the stadium, and the fans are rowdy. But once you get there, you still have to have the mentality to play. And to your point with the mindset of we always lose, until they learn what winning is like, they're going to keep that mindset, especially the older guys that all they've done is lose since they've been on the Giants, until they get that pump of adrenaline from winning a couple games in a row, which we haven't done in years, win more than one in a row. Once they get that adrenaline going, then you'll see a different mindset. The mindset shift from, oh, we're supposed to lose, so let's get out here and lose, to the mindset of we're supposed to win and we can beat every team that comes on this field. And that's what they need to do.
Now, I got a hypothetical for you, just as a hypothetical. Could this team, as it currently stands, if the quarterback was replaced with a guy like Tom Brady or with a talent like Kyler Murray, would the team make the playoffs as it is, or are we going to be waiting a couple years down the line? Because Tom Brady brings a mentality of, he's a big shot, right? But this is his job. This is his game, and he's really good at it. Kyler Murray, he has problems keeping his head in the game, but he has the talent to make other players better. If you were to project and put one of those guys in that position to make this team lose that mentality, what would you see it as changing about the Giants? What do you think it would do for them?
I think if I would never put Tom Brady on the Giants, because I just couldn't do that to my family or anyone I love that loves the Giants. But I will go with Kyler Murray, since you gave me an option. Kyler Murray he's a good young quarterback, and he brings energy. He knows the game. I know they say he doesn't study film or whatever the rumor was, but if he didn't study film, he'd be dead on the field right now. And the kid can get out there, he can ball, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder because he's a shorter guy, but he's fast. He understands where to throw the ball, where to put the ball, and I think he can actually up the game of some of these young receivers we have that stay hurt or sit on what their talents are to try to get to their next contract. And I think that would add that spark. And if we did bring Hollywood Tom in there, I'm sure he would bring the positivity, and he'd buy the linemen a bunch of gifts to make them happy, so it would block for him. And that way he would stay healthy again and be able to throw passes to everyone, or do his dump down passes that he's done 90% of his career, just dump down passes for no name receivers and win touchdowns, win Super Bowls. And I think he could do that with the Giants.
So at the end of the day, looking at your team from a little bit of an analytical standpoint, I use Football Outsiders because I think they're absolutely great. It surprises me in the fact that they are the 22nd oldest team in terms of actual snaps on the field. Who are the people who were on the field last year? And it makes sense when you were talking about how he keeps overpaying for players. But on the other hand, it's by who's actually on the field. So everyone's hurt. What I'm trying to get at is if the big names didn't get hurt, you guys might be one of the oldest snap adjusted teams in the league. Right. So in a sense, is this like Batman? It's always darkest before the dawn. And we're just hoping that the dawn being the first or second pick and we get Alabama's quarterback and life is good. Now that we got a tackle who can block for him, we got a tight end who can be ready for him, and maybe we got a lead receiver. It's not a horrible nest to build, assuming that it's there, but it seems like it's just a year away, and this season's just going to be sad.
I think it's always darkest before the dawn. I think it's the saying. Batman, it's a good reference. But if the sun comes up for us against Titans, then it'll be a different season. But I don't think the sun's going to come up in game one. I think that might be a punch in the mouth and wake-up call for a lot of guys and say, oh, this is really the NFL now. I now have to play. I have to hit people. And then they'll come out the next week and crush Carolina. But I don't think we're going to rebuild in 1 year with a brand new coach and a brand new GM and get it all right. If we do, it's amazing. It'll be great. I'll drink it. I'll drink to that. It'll be great. I don't expect that, and if it happens, I'll be happy. And my dogs will be wearing Giants gear. All four of them will be sitting in front of me with their Giants gear on, whether they like it or not. Yeah. It'll be awesome, and I won't have to hear all these Titans fans here every day. But to your point, if we get that pick and we do get that the stars align and we get that quarterback, I think it'll be even a shinier future for us at that point, because now we have seasoned receivers that made it through a season, hopefully, and we got rid of all that fat or the dead weight that we have at that point.
Beautiful. So that is a message for hope moving forward there, which is good. So one of the things that we ask all of our guests here that they come on the show here is, what do you feel about the national announcers that cover your team? Is there a crew that you like having? I know you don't get on Sunday Night Football a lot, so you don't get Collinsworth and Michaels, but is there a local crew or even a national crew that like, yeah, I want them to call a Giants game, or this is going to ruin my viewing experience?
Since I haven't been local up there in a long time, listen to local announcers. I couldn't tell you local announcers, but there's announcers that I can't stand, like Collinsworth, Troy Aikman. I can't stand because I think he's a little punch drunk in the booth. Tony Romo is actually not a bad announcer, but he does overcall plays for you. If what's his name? The guy from the Saturday morning countdown and the college countdown. If he came up and did more NFL games, it'd be a lot better. He's much better. Yeah, Kirk Herbstreit, also from down the street here. Great analytic guy, great announcer. He understands the game from both sides of the ball. And he's not biased. Even when he calls Ohio State games, he's not biased because the Ohio State fan base hates him because he called against them 1 year. That's why he moved to Nashville here. But he's a great announcer. If he can do every Giants game, I'd be happy.
Beautiful. That's an outside the box answer, Bob. I don't think we got one of those yet.
I know.
So nice. With that being said, we do thank you for being on the show here today, Rich. And I want to give you a chance here to have a couple of minutes to talk about your personal mission that you want to cover here today.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me to talk about the New York Football Giants. As you know, I have my own show, The Misfit Nation, and we're dedicated to advocating for veterans and veterans' mental health, and to get them to ignore the demons in their heads and stay away from the darkness. If you would like to support us, go to themisfitnation.com, subscribe to our show. If you want to become a sponsor, that'd be great. If anything else you can do, go out and shake hands with a veteran. Don't thank them for his service. Say, hey, buddy, what can we do to make your day better? You look down. Let's go get a hamburger or something. Let's keep you up and down. Give them a hand up, not a handout. And a lot of times that's all they need is that hand up and not a handout. And that's what we look for to Misfit Nation.
Beautiful. And what a great message moving forward. So we thank everyone for watching today, and we'll be with you here for the next episode. We thank you for watching this latest episode of Local Football Flavor. We know as a viewer and listener, you have a lot of different options of what you can check out. So we certainly thank you for giving us a chance in today's episode. If you'd like to hear more of our content, whether it be the full-length episode or an individual promo, click that subscribe button. It'll be automatically emailed to you. For those who are helping keep us alive with the sponsorships, you can have your logo right here on the screen. We're also offering all kinds of different sponsorships, such as this little teddy bear over my shoulder here, your logo here on this football instead of the legendary Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and as well as a message down here at the bottom of the screen. To get more information on that, just send us an email at localfootballflavor@gmail.com. And please, as always, click like and subscribe. Those algorithms control our life, and you can help us by controlling the algorithm by being a team player, clicking like and subscribe. So we'll be with you for our next episode. Thank you very much. Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team.